I think collaboration is probably the word, because the stresses are going to be there. The stresses are plenty. And I think, if you're working on a team for an agency, for whomever, that collaboration has got to be there, because when that's not there, it's so much easier for everything to fall apart. It's so much easier. When there's collaboration, everybody is at least moving in the same direction. If we fail together, so be it. We had plans, but nope, got to call and cancel those dinner plans. Got to cancel them. We're working this Friday night. Working. So I think that's it. Is collaboration is the word.
Welcome to Over a Pint, where we focus on the fast-paced and ever-changing world of marketing, told through the eyes of industry veterans with decades of in-the-trenches experience. No theory here. This is real-world experience and practical, told to you by those that have been there, and that includes our guests. So grab a pint of your favorite local brewski or whatever your choice of drink may be, and join us for the show. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Pat McGovern, New Biz Director at Acedia, an award-winning digital shop here in Milwaukee. And I am Kurtl, Vice President at Celtic, a full-service ad agency headquartered in Milwaukee's historic Third Ward neighborhood. So, Pat, today is going to be fun.
Yep.
I'm pumped about our guest, and truthfully very honored to have him on. Today, we have Mr. Kevin Brown with us, KB. Kevin is currently the Creative Resource Director at High Dive Advertising, an ad agency based in Chicago, where their mission is to create the healthiest client and agency relationships in the world, because they believe when relationships aren't healthy, performance suffers. And let me tell you, that relationship philosophy fits right in line with what KB is all about. Prior to High Dive, Kevin spent nearly 30 years working at the global and iconic advertising agency Leo Burnett, an agency responsible for some of advertising's most well-known characters and campaigns of the 20th century, including Tony the Tiger, the Marlborough Man, the Maytag Repairman, United's Fly the Friendly Skies, and Allstate's Good Hands, to name just a very few. So it's at Leo Burnett where I actually met Kevin at a very early stage in my career, as we were colleagues on the General Motors account. And I learned a lot from Kevin, not just about advertising, but as I observed and experienced firsthand, KB is a master at building relationships with people, whether it's the client or his agency team. Talented, respectful, humble, hardworking, funny, fun, and very cool, even in the most stressful of situations. He's the kind of guy you want in your corner, and I say this, he's probably an individual I would run through a wall for, and I mean that sincerely. And probably one of the biggest compliments paid to Kevin is that for as big of an advertising agency that Leo Burnett is, when you said KB, everyone knew who you were talking about, from the president down to an intern. And that is not an exaggeration. So I'm proud to call KB a friend, and I'm very proud to have Kevin on today's show. KB, welcome to Over a Pint.
Wow, Kurt. I don't know if I'm worthy of all that.
Oh, you're worthy.
I appreciate it.
You are
worthy.
And
I'm excited to be here just to talk shop.
We're going to talk shop, is right. But you know what? Before we talk shop, KB, we have a tradition on this show.
Okay.
It is called Over a Pint, right? And we didn't. Yeah. There's a reason we called it that. So we like to go around the horn, and we like to ask everyone, what are they enjoying in their pint or bottle while we have this little chat about whatever it is we're going to have. KB, you're our guest. What are you drinking today?
Well, Kurt, I'm drinking Tullamore Dew single malt 14. It's very nice, very smooth. And if I had my favorite drink here, it would have been Glenlivet 18, but I didn't get to the store in time. So it's a good start, though.
That's a good start, is right. Mr. McGovern.
Yeah, I'm going with a River West Stein. KB, this is from a local brewery, Lakefront Brewery here. Going a little bit darker tonight because, it's fall, man, right? So making that switch over, all right, to the darker side. So
that's a smooth transition.
I'm going to enjoy that while we talk.
Nice. So, so Pat, I'm going back to the well on this one. I had this beer last time, as I have one left in my beer inventory. So that's why I'm doing this one again. This one is a Belgium Imperial Stout by Raised Grain Brewing Company out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. It delivers one heck of a punch at 9.6 ABV, but it is oh so delicious. And I'm also very fond of their IPA called Naked Threesome. So there you have it. That's what we're drinking, folks. So let's get this started. Kevin, you're in the hot seat. I'm going to start right now. Tell us in a minute, who is KB? What do you do? What makes you tick?
Well, at work, I'm a creative resource director. That's what I do. Beyond that, just building those relationships with those key partners and making work a lot more fun. I also like to have a lot of fun. So sometimes that means a few drinks, sometimes not. Love to travel, love to hang out and have a little fun. That's who I am.
That works for me. That works for me. KB, you've spent the better part of your career, as I alluded to earlier, at one of the most iconic advertising agencies in the world, in Leo Burnett. And I'd be remiss if we didn't address that a little bit. I guess I'm going to ask the question, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot, you experienced a lot at that agency. What milestones, what memories, good or challenging, stick out for you? What comes to mind?
Well, there have been lots of good and lots of tough ones, but, the best ones stand out, just like really overall day-to-day success on things. But starting in 91, 30 years ago, leaving the mailroom after like 3.5 years, and then moving on to Oldsmobile. So those right away are things that stand out. And so moving on to Oldsmobile, that would have been like November of 94. And that was exciting. It was a good time. I was doing something different. I was being challenged. And the skill sets that I'd already developed beforehand really played right into the role that I got, kind of logistical, kind of coordinating, organizing large groups. And then, that went by pretty quickly. So then becoming an officer a number of years later, and then just the anniversaries that come along, years go by really fast. So when you start hearing some of those numbers, it's like, wow. But they're all good. And at a place like that, they celebrate you. It's just good people there. So it's just nice to have those times with some of those same people along the way. But the big milestones are those. I'm leaving twice now. Tough both times, very tough, but turns out to be good moves, and they still love me, so it's family.
Yeah,
those things stand out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And the people you meet along the way, like a lot of really smart people, really cool people, really hardworking people. All those people are still in my life, which is really amazing. So that's probably as big a part of it as anything. It's been how many years ago since we worked together, Kurt?
Yeah,
it's been a long time. So,
it has.
But we're still, we still connect. We still stay in touch. It's still like we were just together when we do catch up. That stuff, it lives every day. So I'm still living that like every day, and just interactions with people across multiple places. It's good.
Yeah. KB, I'm sorry.
You know what I mean? It's like mostly all the good stuff, a lot of tough challenges along the way. But when you just look at it in totality, nothing but amazing.
Yeah. It's during those, and your story is a great one, starting in the mailroom, and maybe if you could, towards the end, talk about, just so folks know, it's like, where you started, just briefly talk through what your responsibilities were as towards the end of your run at Leo Burnett, so they understand. I mean, how far you really went. What were you doing specifically? Just give people an idea of really top line what you were doing at the end.
Well, when I came through Leo Burnett, I came into the mailroom as a supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I let them know when I accepted that job, I wanted to do more, and I hoped to do more, but I would give them everything I got. And so that 3.5 years, then I moved on to Oldsmobile, like I said, in '94. And at that time, I was account coordinator in account management. And then I was on that account for several years, well, more like 11 maybe years. Mm-hmm. And after a few years, I was the one that everybody else needed to know on the account. And you remember those teams, they were huge.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where we had like 26 or 30 account people across national and the local market. So yeah. All those people needed me. I had all the assets. I was the one that controlled a lot of the information. So everybody had to meet me and know me. And that's how I got to know everybody. And then just building a little expertise with that first client who was responsible for all the local markets. Mm-hmm. So I was the coordinator of materials before digital. So we had transparencies that we would send to one of 3,000 Oldsmobile dealers that were making their own ads, local newspaper, whatever it might be. So I kept all those transparencies, and I would ship them to people and then request them back. We would, in some cases, people would get charged. It went to digital a number of years later, but so the logistics part is what I had already done in the mailroom. I had done that already for years. So was really good at that. And then my role grew a little bit, got promoted a couple of times, and became a supervisor after a few years of our local project managers. We had about 4 of them, one representing each region. And then I oversaw them. And then a little bit more growth. Project management comes into the building. It evolves into creative resource management. I was recommended to the group when they came in by someone else who worked with me. And then done that for a number more years. And the role in general is still the same, just levels of expertise after that, and some additional growth and some additional responsibilities. And here I am, still doing it, 30 years, a little plus right now.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah, and doing a great job at it. KB, you've been around, I was kind of referencing earlier some of the campaigns that came out of Leo Burnett, and also obviously, with your current agency, with High, you guys work with some great brands. If you could you've been around great work your whole career. You've worked, you've had a pulse on it as you've throughout your whole career. In your opinion, what do you see, or I guess what I'm asking, what in your opinion makes a piece of creative go from a good piece of creative, a solid piece of creative, to something that is, special, something that just is, magnificent? I mean, you've seen it all. You've been a part of executing and part of this. Talk to me about what impacts that, going from good to something that's just great.
I don't know that I trust my opinion on creative work, to be honest, but yes, obviously over this many years, you've gotten to see some things, and mm-hmm. I just think about it through my lens, which is my role. My role, as I see it, beyond just what's on a piece of paper, is making sure that people are able to get from one place to another, right? And so providing, maybe there's an extra day that I work with someone else to get an extra day for something, or the way that I go about those conversations and helping to support that group that's trying to sell the work. The whole agency is trying to sell it, but the creatives that are doing it, the way that I found that I could impact it is by doing everything I could to remove hurdles from in front of them. Like whatever little things I could do to take some challenges away from them that they should not have to be concerned about. Every little chip you make in that, you provide more room for creativity. And the fresher they are, the better the work is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, from my perspective, again, just not trying to play in the places where I don't feel capable or awarded enough to do so. Creatively, you got to be fearless, right? And in my opinion, the biggest part of the idea comes from the insight. You know, what's the insight? You know, we're trying to sell to a certain group of people. Some people find that really interesting way to get to that insight. And then to get that converted from a thought into a piece of work is quite incredible. Again, I don't feel qualified enough to speak creatively, but you got to be fearless. You got to have, you know, leadership that's willing to go all in on the work. Mm-hmm. Fear cannot be a part of the equation. Fear, you will never get to that kind of work if people are afraid to bring that kind of work. So I think getting work out of the building is as tough as anything, like getting it through all the layers that you end up having to go through. Obviously, some very important, but when it comes down to it, the spirit of that business is to sell an absolute best piece of work that's going to be effective for those goals, right? Mm-hmm. And if the work is something that makes people a little nervous, your leadership has to be like steadfast and maintaining that vision. They have to be steadfast in maintaining it. When those hurdles get one hurdle after another, it gets harder and harder, and everybody's under so much pressure. Like there's only so much time. You got to live a little bit too. And so I think sometimes a lot of people fear like having a bad meeting. You can't have that fear. You got to just be, the group has got to be connected, and it's got to be, this is the best work. And each one of us that's in the room, whether you're on a Zoom or not, is selling the fucking work.
Yeah.
That needs to happen. I think sometimes, again, it gets a little stressful for people and they get a little conservative. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is, if this is a strong idea and we're all selling it, how can the chance of them saying no greatly diminishes. Mm-hmm. So I think you got to have a lot of things, but you got to be fearless. Mm-hmm. The agency leadership has got to be strong. And I worked at some places where it is, you know. But you got to have all those things. But the insight might be the biggest part of that equation.
You know, Kevin, you know, I'd said earlier, you know, you're a humble person, and I would disagree with you on something. I would say you are very qualified to answer a question about what makes really good creative, because you just did a very good job there. You've got a lot of experience. I would also add, I agree with what you're saying. I would also add that, you know, you of all people, you are a person of the details. And you alluded to it earlier, details matter throughout the entire process of getting that creative out the door. If you have a great idea, but it is not executed flawlessly, or it is not executed as it was intended to, it's just going to become one of those, another great idea that's on the floor in the garbage can. And so execution is everything, and you certainly were and are a person of detail, so I think you're very qualified to speak to that. You know, the industry itself culturally has changed too. You know, we've all seen the show Mad Men, right? People watch the show and it's like, it's a party, the smoking, the drinking. But, you know, you've been in the industry for a while. You know, having worked where you've worked, talk a little bit about, how the industry's changed, like from when you started and what might have been, the way it was to the way it is now. I mean, maybe just paint that picture a little bit. What changes have you seen?
This would have been early 90s, and I feel like it's changed. It was constantly changing even then. But obviously over a longer period of time now, I have an opportunity to look at things, from back then to now. The thing that stands out is just like the sheer number of people. So I was talking about like when you joined our Oldsmobile team, we had like 30 account people, just the account department. It was unbelievable. And then we had as many creatives.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, but we also had all of that business. And at that time, they were spending a lot of money on marketing. And so we were staffed up. We had everything you could possibly have. And we spent, we enjoyed it too. I would say one thing now is that it feels like then everybody enjoyed it a lot more. I'm guessing it was probably the same level of stress, but it seemed like people were enjoying it a lot more. And some of that might just be outright drinking, just a visual of people just relaxing and doing stuff like that. But we had a lot more resources without question. Mm-hmm. And we had huge production budgets. So, and again, that was that brand. Not every brand in the building at that time had that, but we had the benefit of that. So we were able to like do initiatives and take care of our people internally, like go out as a group and just, socialize maybe a lot more. And quite as often we would be in the office socializing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, also back then, you worked around the clock a lot. Now I work far less that amount of time today as I did then, but I was a lot more in the weeds also, and I felt I needed to be there. So I would be there with my teams. If they were going to be there, I was going to be there. So, the office became like a second home. For some people, spent almost as much time at work as they did at home. I was one of those for a few years. So now with everything electronic, you don't need all these things. Like we had window offices, getting the door was like the thing you aspired to, right? It was one of those you aspired to. And they were nice. I had a few of them, really nice. Imagine that location over the river. You got a nice window office. So those things a lot of us aspired to that stuff. So, and it was good. But, when I look at that compared to today, if we had been more efficient with our spending back then, we could have survived some of the harder times. Right? But again, when, there's, it's not a private place, it gets a little tricky with money, as it does in any place, to be honest. But it feels like, it's a lot more disconnected today because of electronics, obviously. Understanding that does allow a little flexibility for these families. So I certainly appreciate that. And for all those people who work a lot, it's nice to have flexibility to just do it from home, because the toll it takes on some lives is very tough. Mm-hmm. So that has not changed, in my opinion. So there's still a lot of pressure. There's so fewer people to do it today, so it's probably even a little more pressure on those people that are working at certain size places for sure. But in general, I would just say that there was so many more resources back then. There was it feels like there was a little more of a social factor, and that could have been a sheer number of people. I don't know.
Popcorn machine?
What was that?
A popcorn machine?
I don't know what year that came along. Yeah, that came along.
Well, you should know. You were partly responsible for that.
And it's still alive. And I was getting ready to kick that off again before I got a call, which was, it's tough, but they own the popcorn machine. So Leo Burnett will always be the house of blazing. They will always.
Kevin, one of the things I'm dying to just hear is, I mean, you've worked at Leo Burnett for 30 plus years. You were involved in so many brands and so many pitches and so many meetings. I want to hear, what's one of your crazy stories? Set it up for me and the listeners and give us like, okay, this one was unreal. You must have a litany of insane stories.
You know what? I probably do, but you know what? That's one that'll be hard for me actually to pull up, like in the room. Honestly,
Okay.
I might have to come back to that because
take a little time to think about that.
yeah, I might have to come back to that because I'm trying to think of one. To be frank, I've, you know, as I gained some additional responsibilities, I was able to be in the room a lot less, and that's that part about what this industry does I love the most, which is creativity. Just being in the room and seeing somebody present it, whether it's before it even goes to the client or not, just to be in the room, that's the best part of the business to me, to be in the room for that. I mean, doing my job is obviously important, but to have the opportunity to sit in the room for those presentations is quite amazing. And so the only story I will tell you is just the first that comes to mind. There, you know, I worked on Samsung, was one of those really tough accounts to work on, but also quite rewarding when it's all said and done because they had resources and you got a chance to go produce some really high-end work, right? And so working with a group and just a good group of guys, I'll even mention like Chris and Alan and Colin and Vince. And I sat next to them, even after I worked with them, I sat next to them. And they were the ones that concepted Ostrich, won the Gold Lion. And just the way that they went about working, it was very relaxed. They had their seats set up like a little couch, like somebody's living room.
Yeah.
And they would just sit there and talk like creativity and talk ideas. And they would get interrupted because that's how it goes, but they would always find significant time to sit in their little workspace. And it was set up like a little living room.
Yeah.
And talk shop. And out of those conversations came some fantastic work. That spot specifically sat on the shelf for a while. That's how, and that it still won the Gold Lion. Wow. Shows you how strong the idea was. Yeah. But it was just tough to get that finished. No blaming anyone, client or outside. It just took over a year, I believe. Wow. And they eventually got it sold and produced it, and they won, and they traveled to France and they walked on the stage to get it. So that very part cool. About the business, and again, I was around for when that stuff got presented, and I think I might have along the way had that PDF of the first one. It was just 2 frames, right? Yeah. And so, you know, it's amazing to see how like one idea first presented to like people that are going to decide on it can grow into this thing that becomes that thing that we're kind of all seeking in some form of fashion, right? All seeking to do that one piece of work that you can, besides, you know, you're doing a good job, but to have that signature piece of work, especially as a creative, that's something that you hope for. And they got that done. And I just like, and I'm not saying they were so much better than any other group. I just think a bunch of factors, the group of them together, their personalities, them just the creative directors being, you know, very intimate with them and a working style. And that's what came out of it. And is their relationship was never, okay, I'm going to go away and concept and shoot you an email in 4 days with our ideas. They would always sit down and talk through ideas. And I think I would say that experience or others like it would be the things that in the room that were the most amazing things, because creativity is to me, even though my brain doesn't work that way. Kevin, so that would always fascinate me.
in those meetings where the creatives would come up with maybe a number of ideas and then present them to the internal team, talk to us a little bit about what that process was like. Would it be just, hey, I got a thought for this? Or, I mean, how fleshed out would these ideas be? And how much would they give the team to kind of chew on? You know, what was that like? Because that sounds super interesting.
The dynamic it was interesting. So my earliest years, you would come into a room and it might be 20 people in the room. And in those rooms, it might include like the group and executive creative director, possibly the CCO. So there's a lot of pressure in those rooms. And so that's what it would be like. But it also can be competitive, and it shouldn't be competitive. Sometimes, I think we forget that we're all selling the same thing. And I think sometimes, everybody they got some strong opinions, but I think when it's all said and done, we're still all selling work. So what is the best work to sell?
Right.
And if the smaller, or not the smaller, but the decision makers say, you know what, we got to figure this out, then everybody else has got to be selling it. Everyone else, if you're going to be on the phone, if you're going to be helping them prepare for the meeting, everybody's got to be selling it if we're going to the client with it. And so being in the room sometimes is tough because, teams come in after working real hard on things and they think they got something that might be significant, and you come in the room and you have some really smart people who are looking out for the best interests of the agency and the work and the client, and they have a different opinion. So that gets really tough, and you can see the wear and tear on people when you go through that kind of stuff. So I just think the environment has got to be one of like support and collaboration as well. So like, we don't necessarily agree, but let's talk about it. Let's find time to talk about it. Right. We still think it's right because it is. And they might do whatever those opinions are, but I think the spirit that you come into that room with has got to be one of like collaboration, and we're selling something. We're gonna do great work. We're gonna get paid to do it, and we're gonna do it so good they're gonna want to pay us more. And so there's a lot of pressure in those rooms. But overall, my experience has been really good with that. You get really good leaders and you empower them, to speak up. And you got to speak up. And people have to be empowered to like have an opinion, a strong one. As long as they're not belligerent or disrespectful to anyone else about their opinion, they have to be empowered to like pursue it. And if it turns out it's not right, it's not right.
Right.
But, and I mean that from any team member, not just the people bringing the work in the room. Everybody in the room should be empowered to like have an opinion, but also to sell it. So, but you got to come in with the spirit of, we're selling something. What's the best work for us to sell?
KB, I was very blessed, or maybe lucky. I don't know what the right word is, but I was very lucky to be around certain people and have certain mentors and have certain supervisors, bosses. And that's not always the case. It just happened to be that I crisscrossed with certain people. Yourself, people like Anina. I mean, I was lucky, and I think luck has a lot to do with how your career grows. But one of the things that I learned was that a lot of this isn't just about the what, it's about the how. And this, I guess why I want to go with this gets back to the personal and the social skills. Working with as many different types of people as you work with at an agency, at a big agency, you need to have good soft skills, good people skills. You need to know how to read the room. And I think that's something you've always been able to be extraordinary at. I mean, just dealing with people. talk a little bit about that, you know, the importance of that, of those soft skills, those communication skills, and how that really can dictate success versus failure, even if it's within the four walls. Because if you don't deal with someone the right way, you and I could be trying to do the same thing. But if I can't deal with an agency attorney as well as you can, as you said earlier, your work might get past that attorney and mine doesn't, because I just don't have the skill set. Talk about that. I think you could have a good perspective on this.
That's actually what I miss most about us all not being together, because my job, I very much socialize my job, and I don't know how best to say that, but I use that term. It's very much become like a kind of a family, extended family kind of thing. So if, I'm trying to figure out who we need on what, I go sit next to a person instead of like an email. So that's the way that I have done it historically. When we were in the workspace, instead of sending an email, I would just go sit next to that person real quick, talk to them about it. And so what they would always notice is my spirit comes with me, right? It's one of collaboration, it's one of having fun, it's one out of respect. And so that comes with me. You sit with somebody, they're kind of excited to see you, even if they're working. You ask them about something really quickly, and then you're gone instead of, another email. And also, I had to do that to get to know people back in the earliest of days. I had to go visit them. We didn't have the cell phones. You couldn't text them saying, hey, I haven't met you yet, but where do you sit? You just walked around. And so because of all my role, also, they had to come to me. So it's a part of my DNA. I'm certain it's just a socialization of what I was doing, which is just going to talk to people directly, and over time then figuring out how to put the right people together and the people I need to know to get things done. That was the first thing. The people I need to know to get things done. I was the person that you needed to know at Leo Burnett to get stuff out of the building. And so those skills I picked up then. So people had to come and they had to, figure out what they needed from me. And it's just in those interactions over many years, and that always being the way that I preferred to work, you just got to know everybody. Then obviously multiply that time so many years, there's a point where, yes, if you mention my initials, most people in the building would know what you're talking about. And so that made it a lot easier for me to negotiate all those spaces. After I gained more responsibility, then it was like noticing things like certain people that don't work well together and just finding ways to bring them together. And on occasion, going to talk to one of them and try to convince them that, hey, it's not what you think it is. Why don't y'all just, because I've talked to both of them. They both randomly just mentioned it to me, already noticed it. And so I would just, if they're on my team, my extended team, and I'm the one coordinating all these things, I'm going to find ways to bring them together. Mm-hmm. And not that they're going to leave a place hugging each other, but if we just work together, then we get it done. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way that it happened. And then over many years, again, people start to trust asking me questions in situations like that. And I'd already learned how to deal with that, because at that point I've been supervising for a number of years. So I was dealing with that kind of stuff. And people came to trust that what I said was true, or it certainly couldn't be wrong, or they might at least think about it. And so building relationships that way, but going all the way back to the mailroom, knowing every single person that you needed to know to get something done and out the door. Mm-hmm. That was the Joni Spencer, who was over in the copy room. And obviously you needed to know the mailroom. So people had my cell phone number back when we first got them. And then knowing the security guards, because you got all these rules to take stuff out the building, right? That mock-up is not ready until 3 a.m. and you got a 4:15 flight at O'Hare. You think I'm gonna be stopping at the security guard and say, hey man, I talked to them about not having a pass? Nope, because I already got the relationship with them and I already told them I'm not gonna have it in time. I'm gonna have to run out of there. And because of my relationship with them, it was never an issue. Whenever I needed something, I got it. Same thing from legal. So, there was a point where I became like the person on the account team that had to go get things legally approved. The main person that I worked with was Diane Mercaldi. I don't know if you remember that name, Kurt. But she was good at it, but she was the one on Oldsmobile. So I built a relationship with her very early on. And it was another one of those things where I had to call in trust from time to time because she couldn't get to the lawyer till the morning. The trust is, has KB ever lied to me? No. She signed it, give it to me. So that kind of stuff, like building those relationships and trust in the places where you absolutely have to have them. And then if along the way you sprinkle a little bit more around to the people that you work with, I think that's the best situation you can be in. So it doesn't hurt to have all the additional experience, just the time, and have working together with so many different people and groups and personalities. That doesn't hurt, but it's all about that spirit of like working together, collaboration, honesty, like truth. When shit is hitting the fan and we can't make it up, this is the real truth. Can you do it because it is? Okay. I want to, but yes. And you'll get there more often than not. Yeah. But your spirit has got to be that. Yeah. And that's what I've always tried to do, is bring that spirit. And that's what happens in those interactions. And, again, all these years later, it's paid off in a lot of ways, just in, being able to get things done, which is the thing I'm most proud of, and just being able to help keep people as sane as possible.
Funny story I have about you, KB. I don't know if you remember this, but I certainly do. You had sent, per your advice, we were trying to get some creative approved through legal, and you sent Cristiano and I up to the legal department with a box of chocolates.
Did I?
Yes, you did, because that attorney liked chocolate.
Oh
and
my God!
And we did get it approved. We got the sign off.
I didn't remember that.
I remember that. KB, what advice would you give a young KB or someone that's entering the industry now, because it's changed? I mean, what if you could go back? What advice would you give yourself if you could?
Oh, yeah. Well, it has changed, but I think like the foundation of things really hasn't, and I don't think that it ever will. The foundation of things has got, obviously, it's a business, right? We're running a business, but I think collaboration is probably the word, because the stresses are going to be there. The stresses are plenty. And I think, if you're working on a team for an agency, for whomever, that collaboration has got to be there, because when that's not there, it's so much easier for everything to fall apart. It's so much easier. When there's collaboration, everybody is at least moving in the same direction. If we fail together, so be it. We had plans, but nope, got to call and cancel those dinner plans. Got to cancel them. We're working this Friday night. Working. So I think that's it. Is collaboration is the word. You got to learn patience. I learned that really early on. You gotta have those things, but you also gotta have a voice. You gotta have an opinion, but it's gotta be educated. You can't just be saying dumb shit, to be frank, excuse my language. And I'm not blaming any person or any one group, but it's okay to have a voice, but I think it's got to be the voice of collaboration. It's got to be that's where it's got to come from, the foundation of collaboration. But yes, I think everybody should have a voice, but I do get concerned about the amount of time to get to a decision, because there's a lot of back and forth, and rightfully so on the client side. I get it. They're spending a lot of money. Most of them can't just come right back and fix a mistake. So you got to respect those concerns. But I think, if I had to, I came in, I think, prepared because I was already in the game more or less a few years. And so I understood how the agency worked. And I also, it didn't hurt for me before I even left the mailroom. I knew all the people in the corner offices in the building that were at Leo Burnett. So they all knew who I was. They knew my name. They all had my phone number as a person. So I fixed problems for people when I was in the mailroom. And so, before I left the mailroom, I already had their reputation with people. So that didn't hurt me. So most people are not coming in with that. But collaboration, patience, and, an educated voice for each person, yes. It can still be fun. It'll still be rewarding. But I think those three things will be important. If I had to start over, those are things I wish that I knew already. Most of it I kind of had in my spirit, but yeah.
KB, did you have a mentor, someone you looked up to in your professional career, as well as just maybe in life? Is there someone that you looked up to, or someone that really helped you out?
Yeah, a lot of people, to be honest. There are so many names, I wouldn't know where to start at. But just, like early on getting a job, so like Joyce Wilson, who was my boss in the mailroom, and John Cowie, who hired her. And then after that, so many different people, teammates that I work with. I'd be remiss to probably name one because I'm gonna miss everybody. But yeah, and all those same people have been supportive, like every step of the way. So, like thousands of them, and thanks to places like Facebook and Instagram, you can be in touch with so many people, and I am with quite a few people that I've worked with over the years. And and then, going all the way up to the very top. So, all the CEOs from the time I was in the mailroom, all very supportive, and all like, just supporting in every way possible. If my name came up with something, they would put in a good word. That's the case today wherever I go. That's probably the biggest blessing from all my time, is that, like, what's happened in recent years is that people have come to appreciate what this role could be. And some of them worked at Burnett, so some of them got to work with our department. And they've moved on to other places. And so now some places are finding this role to be so much more valuable. And so they end up calling me. And that's what's happened in recent years. Started to get calls where I never had before. And I was not looking to leave. But yeah, so probably the biggest benefit out of all that time was that from being in this role or similar roles for so long, is that people came to appreciate what this role was, what it could be for them, what it meant to a certain group. And, obviously me as an individual came along with that. So.
As we start to go to we start to wrap up, Pat, I'll start with you. Do you have any final questions that you might want to throw at KB's way?
It's not a final question. It's just this, KB. You and I have had a little connection with each other back a few years, but I didn't understand what your role, and you're just your EQ has got to be off the charts. I mean, working at an agency, you're painting a really nice picture. Working at an agency is demanding. You're dealing with a ton of personalities, and you put a lot of different personalities Okay, and let's turn the heat up a little bit more. You put on some severe deadlines where you've got millions of dollars on the line. Getting things through the machine takes a ton of effort, man. What you're talking about here is just no little task. And your ability to say, hey, Kurt, take this box of chocolates up, you'll get things done faster, just points out how much you're aware of how to move people in a good way. I mean, you could do a master class on this. I'm listening to you going, we're just scratching the surface, Kurt. We're just like, I mean, this could be another whole 3 hours.
Yeah, I believe, honestly,
Agreed.
there's a spirit of working, the spirit by which you bring yourself to work, and that, that collaboration part, just trying to find ways to come together. Listen, all of us that have worked in this industry have felt the pain of it. And I have had more than my share in all these years, to be completely honest. But what keeps me motivated is that same spirit. So if I'm working with people like that, and I pretty much have everywhere I've gone, I'm working with people like that. And even if they're not like that, together we all become that way, right? If the lion's share of people are working in a certain spirit of collaboration, anybody else that's not doing that is gonna stand fucking out, and it ain't gonna look pretty, to be honest.
Yeah.
But hey, it's a tough business, tough decisions need to get made. I've just done the best I could. I haven't always succeeded at that with people. There are people in this industry I prefer not to work with again.
Sure.
We can be honest, and I'm sure there are dozens of them that will tell you the same thing about me, to be completely honest. Because it gets tough, and sometimes decisions have to get made. And when I was in that position, in most cases, I made the right decision, but I made the decision. And so somebody's got to do that.
Yeah.
Mine is not about what piece of work. Mine is about who and when. So, I'll do my part, but those times get tough. And again, this industry, to be honest, is not for the faint of heart. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. It ends up taking a toll on families and people in general. It takes a toll. I do believe this COVID thing has helped to provide a little bit of flexibility for people, which I appreciate. And I've always tried to find that extra space for the people that I worked with. Like, we can find an extra day for this person. Can we make sure there's nothing happening over this weekend for that person? That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to, beyond what my actual role is, I'm trying to find those moments where we can give people a little bit of their life back, because it's tough. It's multiplied by the situation we're living in, to be honest, but it's tough. And so you see it on people, you feel it, you can feel it in an email.
Yeah.
You can feel what people are feeling in an email. And that's actually quite remarkable if you think about it. So it's a lot of pressure. But I would say for people with creative minds, you won't find a lot of things more rewarding. And not just creative minds. That's just where I kind of have specialized for years. But I would just say, if that's your space, you can get some amazing things done on some amazing brands. And you also don't have to wait for those amazing brands. You can do your own today. You can just grab a cause and go do something really cool. And I think, most of us that have been around for a while want to do things like that. For example, my vision, I hope to kick that off soon. I've been putting it off forever, doing like a Chicago public high school challenge, like advertising challenge. So, the biggest challenge with diversity, of U.S. diversity, is just people are not aware that this exists. I didn't know this industry existed when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I grew up right here in Chicago. So, awareness is everything. and then opportunity, of course, things like that. So my hope is that I can gather a lot of professionals, regardless of where you are, because of the electronic today, right? You don't have to be in Chicago to do it, but hope of grabbing teenagers from each public high school in Chicago, teach them how to, teach them advertising online, and, and have a competition. I think that would be fantastic. I think that would provide some really good awareness for these kids that don't realize it exists and that they're capable of doing it and that they will thrive in it. So doing something like that, where again, I call in my relationships from the many years, people that I've worked with, people that they've worked with, so forth and so on, get a bunch of volunteers, make it all online, put all the information online, have briefings for them where we talk to them about the different disciplines within the industry, like one each day for an hour a day, have check-ins with them, all that kind of stuff, like have a real show. Get the city involved, get the ad community involved, get local big businesses involved to donate money, and maybe we show them what the future of advertising is through the eyes of Chicago public high school students. How cool would that be?
That'd be cool.
That'd be awesome.
Indeed, man. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I guess as we wrap up, KB, that was awesome. Is there anything that we didn't ask you that you wish we would have? Is there anything that you want to say? The floor is yours, KB.
Well, so one thing I think I forgot that I was hoping to just mention, talking about the older days, more or less, is that one thing I did appreciate about being at work, I had fun every single day. Every single day of my work life, I had fun at work. I wasn't getting that at home every day, to be completely honest. But at work, because of my relationships, because of the people I knew, because of what we were doing, I actually had fun every single day. I had some days where stress far outweighed the fun, but I did have fun every single day, every single day. And so I would say overall that has continued over this period of time. I make my own fun too. I'm not going to be miserable all day. I'll find something else to do. I'm not going to be miserable all day, but I'm going to make sure that like the people that I'm involved with, that we're having some kind of fun, that we're at least appreciating that little bit of time we got together in some way beyond the work-related stuff, something fun, And so a lot of that comes just across in the interactions with people. Right. That's what my history has been, is just the interaction with people. And that's fun for me. I'm a very social person. I've met a lot of people. I've forgotten most of their names, but if I see them, I generally will remember their face, right? So I'm very social in that way. So having fun is important. If you're not having fun, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be a tough time. It's going to be even more stressful than it should be. And so it's just a lot to take away from that. It should be fun. If we think about our space to compare to some others and what others do for a living and the benefits and all that kind of stuff we have with just like the way that we work, it's a beautiful situation. So I think we have to try as much as possible to have fun, while we're doing it. And then, appreciate each other and look out for each other and, make sure everybody's feeling good, because it's tough. It's a tough business. It's going to continue to be tough, but if everybody brings a little bit of that vibe with them, that, you know what I mean? If everybody brings a little bit of that vibe along with them, it's going to be good. It can be a lot of fun too. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to bring just a little bit of that vibe every day. When I can't bring that, guess what? I'm going to somebody's beach somewhere. If I can't do that, it's going to be time to just call it. Because I want to be good at what I do. I don't want to be, if I'm not good, it's better to walk away. I want to be good at what I do. So I want to be motivated. I want to be healthy. I want to have my brain sharp. I want to have some fun while I do it. So I think that's all I got.
Well, I'll tell you, I go back to the way I opened this episode. You know, talented, respectful, humble, hardworking, fun, funny, the kind of person you want in your corner, and the kind of person that you'd want to run through a wall for. That's KB. And finally, you said the word earlier, just seconds ago, vibe. KB, I say this with all sincerity, your vibe, your positive vibe is infectious in the most awesome way. And it has, it's been an honor to have you on this program. It's an honor to have you as a friend, and this was an awesome conversation. I can't thank you enough. And with that, I want to say cheers to KB. This was Over a Pint. Thank you, KB.
Cheers. Thanks, KB.
Cheers.
Appreciate you, player. Thank you, guys.